But even if NBA Live 18 isn't coming to PC, and it isn't, we do actually have some more previews of NBA Live 18 came out this week, so it was nice to see the game in action again. This, as we said at the top of the show, it was from the event in New York. Various YouTubers got access to the footage, which they shared, along with some of their thoughts and vlogs from the event. Looks like a pretty fun time, Ben and Kenny. It's you wish you could attend. I once went to an event in New York, and from the sounds of it, they didn't get to play the game, but I know they've had other... they're always bringing people in for game testing and things like that, so I'm sure they're getting feedback there, but they did show the game off. People seem to be very impressed. And Kenny, the footage... it certainly looked a bit smoother, I thought, than the first one, which actually goes back to something Ben said on the show, which was that it could have been an early build from the previous footage, because this one did seem to be a bit newer, a bit more fluid.
Definitely looked a lot more fluid than the very first one that we saw. But one thing that just kind of stands out to me is that we didn't see a whole lot of defense in the latest footage, and that's something that is kind of big for me when it comes to NBA Live, because I played NBA Live 16 a little bit last night, and it's almost impossible to play good defense in that game, at least on ball anyway. So, that's something that's very important, at least for me, and I kind of have, I guess, a kind of controlled optimism at this point, like when it comes to gameplay, because I just need to see that in order to make more of a judgment.
I mean, I guess we saw that block off the backboard in the first gameplay release, but you're right. I mean, a lot of the trailers and the teasers, they do really focus on the offense, which I guess we're all guilty of that as basketball fans, but that is a very important side of the ball. And I think we talked about that last week as well, Ben, that the need for having that physicality and great defense in the paint, as well as the perimeter, of course.
Oh, yeah. It's key elements of the actual game and that, so hopefully, with EA Play, we get to see a lot more. Whether it's stuff that they show on stage, or whether it's the over-the-shoulder cam experiences and that or videos and that we'll see over the next week and that. So yeah, I'm in the sort of same boat with Kenny. I'd like to see a lot more defense in terms of things, just sort of how fluid and stuff it is. So yeah, hopefully we do see something over the coming days. So fingers crossed.
And one thing I'll point out whenever we see footage, and this goes even for 2K, which has had the much better reputation in terms of animations and player movement and such, is that even when you look at the game from the cinematic angles and everything, I still think it doesn't look quite as good when you're watching it as when you're playing it, because when you're watching it, you can really scrutinize the stuff that's not quite real, because despite Desires Creed and what they're trying to do at 2K and EA, of course, they are still video games, so there are still limitations of what they can do. But I've always felt the games look a little better when you're actually playing them than when you're scrutinizing footage. But that being said, Live 18, any improvement it can show in the animations, so that it can make that great impression and get people in, and then hopefully feel so good on the sticks. It's to his benefit, obviously.
I think as far as that's concerned, when you're playing, your mind is kind of geared more to reacting to the plays and stuff, so you're probably not likely to scrutinize the visuals as much, because you're immersed. So I think that's probably why.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. Zoned in into a sense. So, yeah.
Which I guess is why minor stuff that I may see, I don't necessarily have too much of a problem with. And I know some people have been pointing out some of the issues with jerseys and whatnot, and even that stuff. This is early days. That stuff can be fixed up right until close to the game goes gold. So that really doesn't bother me all that much. That stuff. I know we were talking about it before the show.
That stuff usually gets added in last anyway. So in terms of uniforms and stuff like that, that's happened in previous ones, where it's one of the sort of last things to always sort of be finalized, because a lot of teams go through changes of uniforms and stuff like that, and obviously to try and minimize any early leaks in terms of that. Plus this year, we've got to take into account that new company manufacturing and all that stuff in terms of sponsorship. So
which we're pretty pleased about, as we've said before. Nike over Adidas.
Yeah.
Was it Live 16 that they released a screenshot of Jeff Teague, and it was in the old Hawks jersey, and then they released one that was actually in the new one? So the very first Teague shot was in the old Hawks jersey, and then was in the new one.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
I think I was one of the guys that pointed that out in terms of.
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah, so even between like what was I think from memory just a few weeks or something,
a couple
or
of
even,
weeks, through 2-3 weeks. Yeah, something like that.
yeah. So things like that happen. That they'll implement and put in all the new assets that need to be in that. So that's just the cosmetic stuff that gets added late in terms of things. So, and yeah, that's just going by the history of what we've seen in past. So. Yeah.
It seems a pretty good bet. I'm not too concerned about it. And even if it is, it's stuff that can be patched these days. And even if it's not, well, it's if the animations and gameplay and game modes are up to scratch, I can put up with some slight details. I mean, obviously, I'm all for getting it as accurate as possible because they are going to be scanning in the jerseys and shoes and things like that.
They actually started showing some of the scan shoes.
They did, yes.
Today or yesterday by the time this gets released.
Last couple of days, when the Slam magazine article came out, they did show the screenshots of the shoes, and Erica also shared a couple, and plus some behind-the-scenes snaps as well on her Twitter. And there were also some screenshots of what looks like the Prime arenas. And I know you quite like the Prime approach, the Live Prime approach, Kenny. And Rucker Park's in there, and looks like the Drew League's been confirmed, which was pretty much confirmed, but obviously that screenshot seals the deal, I guess.
Yeah, I think the screenshots of the Pro-Am courts look really good. But yeah, I think just for me personally, I'm a big fan of the EA Sports franchise, like not just basketball, but pretty much through all the sports. So I kind of like their aesthetics more than 2K. I guess it's my personal bias, but I've grown up with those, like with their graphics and stuff. So I guess I'm kind of biased in how I like NBA Live 18, how it looks.
And it's not looking too bad, and the reactions do seem to be quite positive, which is very promising early on, because previous years people have seen those early screenshots and, oh gee, it's not as improved as we like to see, and even a little bit of that when the first reveal this year, but a lot of people saying that it's looking pretty good, the latest screenshots and video. Just looking at the Slam Magazine article, because they talked to producer Mike Marr a little bit, and he reiterated the focus on improving the core gameplay, such as control, animations, fluidity, contact, and physicality. Obviously, great news to hear that. We'd like to see it more in action, of course, and not just from cinematic angles. That's the big thing when it comes to gameplay footage every previous season. Didn't mention much about the one, but sort of did talk a little bit about it, saying it's the new way to play, and talks about modes being redesigned and built around it. And there's a quote here that says, "You can expect that NBA Live will be delivering on what most players would consider to be staples." And considering how much, gameplay is paramount, as I've said so many times, but the longevity and replayability of games really comes from the modes. How much time we've spent in my career or Dynasty over the years in various games of Live and 2K. So to hear that the one is going to have some really cool stuff, and that it's going to, that the other modes have kind of been, I guess, given attention to some respect, and hopefully from the sound of that, it's just, it's good to hear. Basically, obviously gameplay is important, but I'd hate to have another game that sort of feels very bare bones, Ben, as far as the modes go.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than it's like something that looks pretty, but is just hollow in terms of things. So
yeah, it's like, what do you play? Like, oh, this feels fun, but I want some meaningful game modes. What do I play? And if they're not sort of delivering, it's a bit disappointing, or quite disappointing, really. Yeah,
and I'm intrigued to learn more about the one. It obviously has sort of been the thing that they're sort of focusing on as their selling point at the moment. With the sort of first teaser element that we got in terms of the image of the logo for it.
It's a nice little logo as well.
Yeah.
Stylish and simple but elegant, someone might say.
It doesn't look like a complicated mess and all that stuff. So,
and here we are analysing the logo because we don't have anything else to any of the details to go on. So,
but the courts look fantastic. Like the indoor, like the first screenshot you see on, I think it's the first one, which is just making sure. Yeah, it's the first one where you're seeing like the indoor gym with all the white sort of little rafter, sort of steel piping parts and all that stuff. Like the lighting in that looks really cool. To the gloss on the court looks fantastic.
That's
I'm a big
the Hoop Dome in Toronto, I believe you're talking about.
yeah. I was trying to look for the name of it. It's just, but yeah, like that looks really cool from the natural lighting that's coming through the windows to the artificial lights and all that stuff. Just looks so clean. And yeah, obviously me being a sneakerhead and that seeing some of the other shoes and all that stuff in there that looked really cool. Saw a photo of like the OVO 12, like Jordan OVO 12s and they look clean. And like I'm a big sucker for white and gold shoes, so that looks cool. The Drew League court looks really nice. The Rucker Park one at night looks fantastic as well, like the atmosphere. And then Venice Beach court, that looked like really impressed with that one. So in terms of the screenshots in that one, so yeah.
And obviously we talked about the importance of having a squad mode in Live Pro-Am because we've enjoyed having the squad stuff in 2K Pro-Am, but having those authentic courts, really, it's a pretty good trade-off for not being able to customize your own court, especially when you see some of the courts we've had to play on from other people in 2K Pro-Am.
Yeah.
So
I mean, yeah, it does eliminate like playing on the one style of court, you know, where it's just sort of a basic generic design to where you something where in this case you got multiple courts, you got multiple type of settings in terms of daylight, nighttime, indoor, outdoor. So it adds a whole different type of atmosphere to each court and all that stuff. So there's something visually different each time, you know, different venue and that. So it'll eliminate a certain potential blandness and just sort of everything looking and feeling the same in terms of atmosphere and that. So definitely. Yeah, I'm liking the variety in what they've got with it in what they've shown. So yeah.
And I think it kind of reinforces, Kenny, the whole Pro-Am, you know, Pro-Am concept of actually having these players where pros and amateurs do join and play in these social leagues and whatever. You know, obviously we've enjoyed 2K Pro-Am for what it is, but having that concept and actually having NBA plays in there, you know, it really stands out and it's something different. So it is nice that they've gone in another way, even though I would like those squad options to for matchmaking, if nothing else.
It is good that they have slightly changed it up from what 2K offers, or, you know, like by keeping, I guess, their core, the core element of what Live Pro-Am offered in NBA Live 16. But going back to what you were saying about the courts before, the whole customization thing, it was something that you actually had to work for in 2K17, so it wasn't actually a given. So the fact that we do actually have all these really nice courts for NBA Live 18 makes a world of difference, because I got really sick of playing on that generic court.
Oh yeah, and you know, even like in 2K with the warehouse court that you have in there, I finally upgraded to the cottage one, and that just last night, and that because I finally managed to tee up a thing with Terry Henry and that. So that was a refreshing change from that court. Yeah, you could change a few little things here and there in terms of but yeah, it being on that one thing for so long, and it just kind of got over it and all that stuff.
We had to grind for a really long time just to customize our court as well.
Oh yeah, yeah.
The customization is great, but it was not accessible enough for just regular players of NBA 2K. So I think this is definitely refreshing.
Given how accessible it was in 2K16, was, you know, it was, you could do it straight off the bat.
Maybe too accessible, so there needs to be a happy medium, I think.
Yeah.
People have made a lot of really crap courts in 2K16.
I would suggest that you at least have to get to pro level, so you need to have a team together for at least 10 games or 10 wins, I think, is fair. For if they're going to change it up in 2K18, because
I think they have to.
Yeah,
but well, of course, you know, not to get too off track with the live stuff, but I mean, with the customization, we've talked about how the jerseys and everything, how a lot of people put together a really, you know, ugly designs and courts that really interfere with the player indicators, and having a color for the home jerseys, so they clash with the away jerseys of, you know, when you're on the road. So the customization has its drawbacks. So simply being able to have the Live 18 or the Live Pro-Am approach with these beautiful courts, and I guess the more custom. Everyone's got their own gear that they put together, their own outfit. Although I would still like to have some jerseys, some Pro-Am jerseys, but squad options would be cool. But yeah, as you said, as we've said before, having that different approach, it gives Live 18 a hook, something different. So it's which it needs. Each game, there's some common things that both games need to do as far as being great NBA sims, and then from there they need to have their own hooks, their own gimmicks that provide their own experience that the other one doesn't. So, or their variation of it that the other one doesn't. So, yeah, I'm all for it.
Yeah, same. Yeah, it was good variety in terms of change and something different. So, yeah, those few moments where we did get to play on Live 16 Prime, we did have some fun in that. But yeah, really hoping that this kind of all the stuff in Live 18 looks and feels a lot better, and taking it to the next step that it needs to, and all that stuff. So, fingers crossed.
Definitely.